Sophia, welcome to Inside the Truck. Great to have you with us today. Steve and I wanted to get you on earlier, like during the hockey season, but this compressed season with the Olympic break, I don't know how you found it, but it was insane. It was like every other day, right?
It was crazy. Like nothing could have prepared you for the schedule. And then, you guys, myself, anyone in media, we're not even playing. Like I couldn't imagine my body going through it and a lack of practice time. With the Bruins, they wanted more practice time. So Marco Sturm tried to give them rest, but new coach, new system. He wanted to get it was honestly crazy. And I tried explaining that to people. I don't know if you guys get the same reaction, but like sometimes my friends are like, oh, poor me. I have to cover the NHL. Poor me. I stay in five-star hotels. Poor me. I have to fly. But you're like, guys, it's just, I'm not complaining that the work is hard, but if you're not sleeping and you're going every other day, it was crazy. So I get it. I totally get it.
You know what the problem is? It's not like you're just walking in and no slight to accountants, but it's not like you're walking in and being an accountant. You got to have your A game and you've got to look good. You don't have that choice, right?
Listen, a great point. This is what I say all the time to people, especially men, and I love you guys, but especially men who don't put on makeup or have to do their hair. I say, pretend it's your wedding day or it's like a big family photo shoot. And I worked with a lot of married guys who've had to do engagement shoots or photo shoots. And you're getting your hair freshly trimmed, probably not putting on makeup, but you're trying to look your best. Maybe you went to the gym extra couple months before your wedding day and you're prepping and you're looking a certain way and then you're kind of on all day. And I'm like, imagine doing that every day. For me, when I do my hair and my makeup and then you're putting forth the energy of your max effort, it's like, or if you're talking about an accountant, it's like you have to do a meeting in front of the whole company, PowerPoint presentation, and be on your game. And I'm like, you guys might do that once a month, maybe once a week, maybe once a quarter. It's every day and it's in front of everyone. So great point. Because I bring that up to my friends. I'm like, I know it sounds, sometimes I feel bad for complaining, but sounds petty. But I get home at 1 a.m., for example, from a show, and then I'm waking up and doing hair and makeup the next day at like 8 a.m. and you're back in it. And again, we chose this life. I'm happy, but I'm glad someone gets it. I'm glad someone sees it.
And not only stuff about broadcast too, right? So, but there's all the stuff around it too. Like you're on social media, like you've gone to the morning skate, you're letting Bruins fans know any changes and stuff, and all the little tidbits that everybody dies to have around the game as well too. So when the season's on, it is really 24/7.
Yeah, you can't really miss anything. And I am lucky. I don't want to pretend I'm the only one at Nesson covering the team. Like we have Adam Pellerin, who's ringside when I'm hosting, and then I love being ringside so much, which we can get into later, but I love it so much. And I love hosting too. It's two completely different ball games, but ringside gets me closer to the guys, to the team. I love those in having more inside scoop. So Adam will host when I do ringside, but I'm lucky that it's not just me. It's a split duty. And with that, if he's reporting and I'm hosting, I actually do get to, for the most part, get to have the mornings slower or off. I'm not responsible for putting out the tweets. So I am really lucky in that sense. But for those people who do it, and they're the only ones on the team who do it, it is nonstop because you can't miss something. You can't have an affiliate or, channel, whatever, the 6 o'clock news get it before you do. So yeah, you got to be on all the time.
We can actually get into it right now. So you host and you're ringside. I get the ringside thing, the pulse, but it's hard
Yeah.
to explain how the booth is lovely. If you're up in the broadcast booth, the studio is totally disconnected. But ringside, you're not in the room, but like you're kind of as close as you can get without being in the room, right?
Yeah, I love ringside because of that. You're not in the room obviously in intermissions or anything, but you are in the morning, you are after right after the game. And I said this the other day to somebody that doing the bench interviews, 30-second bench interviews. I know you guys do people between the benches. Jackie Redmond gets to, come on you guys. When I say you guys, sorry, I'm referring to TNT. I apologize for throwing that in there, but I'm referring to TNT, which I know Paul has spent a lot of time there. But anyway, it depends on ESPN and TNT how they do it. With Nesson, I'm on the bench for warmups, and we do an interview with the player for in the first minute, whatever. They do a couple laps and then they come over. And most reporters will leave and I will stay for the entire warm up because it's the closest I'll ever get. I'm never going to be good enough to play in the PWHL. I'm never going to be good enough. I can't play in the NHL, obviously. It's the closest I'll ever get. And it's just, I'm using air quotes here, just warm ups, but the vibes are so high. And I know a game is so much more intense. The music, just watching how the players interact, their weird routines. I love it. And you get so close, like you said. It's, when you're when you're a fan and you're going to watch the game, depending on where your seats, you just have such a respect seeing it up close in person versus on TV. But when you're in the gondola, which I understand why media sits there, because you get that bird's eye view, you get to see plays unfold. But then you go down to ice level, and if you're right there without any glass separating you, you're just like, this is such a fast, awesome sport. And yeah, it's the best thing going, adrenaline wise, and you really feel like you made it. You really feel like I worked my ass off for this, and I'm here. It feels so good.
Okay, so does this take you back to when you were 6 years old? Because there was a story that you used to cover the games every night with your dad manning the camcorder when you were as 6 years old. You've been a hockey fan your whole life, right?
Yes. Hold on. First, I gotta applaud excellent research. Where did you find that? Did I tell you that story, or did you read it somewhere?
I dug it up, so
Okay.
I did my homework.
Excellent research. As someone who's supposed to be doing research all the time myself, great digging there. Yeah, no, I love telling this story. My parents are Polish immigrants and moved to Canada in the early 70s when actually the Bruins were good. But way fewer teams, and you didn't have Netflix. You had cable TV, and you got what you got. That's it. You got whatever they were streaming to. So hockey was on in Canada all the time, and my dad loved Hockey Night in Canada. And I just remember, he worked really hard, as did my mom, but like 3 jobs, both of them, working mornings, working evenings, not really home. But I remember Saturdays, which is our big Hockey Night in Canada day, was just a day to have family dinner. My dad was allowed to have 1 beer. My mom was pretty strict. She ran a tight ship. But he was allowed to have whatever, like 1 or 2 beers. And I just remember even my mom getting into it, just like the whole family got to just be quiet, slow down for a bit. And so I associated watching the game with like family time and fun. And I obviously loved it. But I think at 6 years old, like most kids, you don't really understand why you like it. You like it because it gives you a feeling. And that feeling was calm. And my dad got to be home for the night. He didn't have to do his second job. He got to sit. And so that was the way I bonded. And as I got older, I just started to love the game, the passion around it. And yes, I would pretend to do highlights. And I remember we had like, I don't know, like a 14-inch TV or 23. Like it was so small, right? As big as my laptop screen that I'm looking at. Color, no 4K. But I remember in the video, which I honestly have to find. I haven't dug it up yet. I have to find. I remember watching it like 5, 10 years or 10, 15 years ago, but not since. But yeah, I'm in front of it, and my dad has the camcorder, and he's watching me at a desk in the living room, and I'm writing on, I don't think we even had we had legal papers. So it's like long paper. It's like half my size, right? I'm like 6 years old short, and I'm writing these highlights, and I go in front of the TV screen and I say, "Hi, I'm Sophia. Welcome to Hockey Night in Canada," which at the time there were, I'm almost 40 now. So say 35, 32 years ago, there weren't any women that I was watching. I was watching Ron McLean, Don Cherry, but I wasn't watching any women. But for some reason, I just pretended I was on the panel and I would read highlights. But at that age, I got everything wrong. I remember in the highlight, I was reading a highlight for the Edmonton Oilers, and I said Eric Lindros scored for the Edmonton Oilers, which of course would be incorrect. But when you're a kid, it doesn't matter. And yes, I would pretend to do that. And it's kind of crazy to actually be doing it now for work.
And where are we at this point? Are we what city are we in? What team are we watching?
Yeah, I was in Toronto. I was born and raised in Toronto. I moved to Boston about almost 7 years ago now. In August, it'll be 7 years, which is crazy. But moved to Boston about 7 years ago, but born and raised in Toronto. And so I was in kind of like a neighborhood in Toronto watching Hockey Night in Canada. I grew up cheering for the Leafs. And of course, Hockey Night plays, especially Canadian games. So got to kind of see all of that growing up.
And who were your Leaf players that you loved?
Oh, Doug Gilmour, Wendell Clark. I was kind of in that Felix Potvin. I loved Felix Potvin so much. Darcy Tucker was a fan favorite. And when I was a teenager or 12, 13, I was convinced I was going to marry him, which is crazy. But I had the biggest crush on Darcy Tucker. Shane Corson played at the same time as him for a little bit, and that was his brother-in-law, and they were called the Bruise Brothers because they were just like rough and tough guys. Tucker was such a fan favorite, still is. And then of course like the Sundin era after that, and just that those were my guys. And I started covering the team. I don't know. I was honestly like 19 or 20, very young, as an intern. I wasn't paid to do it. I was paid to get, or I was just volunteering to get sound for a local radio station. And then that era kind of changed. But the era I grew up watching was that Sundin era. And then before that, the Clark and Gilmore and Felix Potman.
So, Sophia, you kind of fast tracked from 6 years of age. Ryerson University, as you mentioned, working on an internship in radio covering the Leafs, and then joined the Score as a reporter. But in 2012, when you joined Sportsnet and got a chance to do it at the at the national level, that kind of was a really big first step for you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And all of it, all the experience you gain along the way leads to, that moment or whatever, and then the moments that follow. Yeah, so the Sportsnet acquired the Score. I was at the Score, and so I was just acquired in a big, I don't know how many employees we had, like 200 people, and half went to the digital app and then half went to TV. And they were struggling finding a place for me at Sportsnet for a while, and understood, like they just absorbed 10 extra on-air talent, right? So you're like, what do we do with these people? So luckily for me, I was kind of floating around for a bit. I worked on City TV in Toronto doing their local news, but the sports segment of their local news. So I did the 5 o'clock hit, 6 o'clock sports hit, and 11 o'clock sports hit. Really learned a lot there. That was really cool, and got to cover all sorts of, mostly the Toronto teams, but the Jays and Raptors and all that. So that was really fun. And then when Sportsnet got the rights to the NHL, everything changed, and they absorbed, so many more shows and channels, and they needed me. I started on the digital side. So it's funny to say this now, isn't it? That it was only, I don't know, I'm trying to think, around 10, 11, 12 years ago, that digital was still kind of a new concept. Like, let's grow the digital side. So that was my role. Transparently, it was very mismanaged. It's so hard. You absorb the rights, and in like 3 months, you got to put together teams to friggin' make everything work. So there was, again, a lot of, in a way it was difficult because it was very mismanaged, but in another way I got to be as creative as I wanted to be, because no one was really managing it. So you got to, experiment with things. And then luckily for me, in that time, and innovating different ideas and features and whatever we were doing, there was someone who was running Sportsnet, and he liked my energy, I guess, or liked my presence, and said, why don't you do a spot on Hockey Night in Canada, which is crazy. Like for me at that age, I was like, wait, what? Like from the Score to Hockey Night. And it was a sponsored segment, and that's okay. It's totally fine. It was a sponsored segment that I think lasted about 30 to 35 seconds. And for those people listening who aren't in TV, that's, you don't get a lot of time and break. You have so many elements you have to fit in. And a 30-second spot is long enough. Like that's a good spot to get on the primetime show. So I did a sponsored segment, and then one thing led to another, and got a little bit more exposure. But I remember my first time doing it, my legs were shaking, and best day ever.
So when you're, coming over from the Score, being acquired, not many media people get acquired, by the way. It's usually players. I thought that was good. Yeah.
Right.
When you can, right? When you come over from the Score, are you just, okay, I'll do this. Okay, I'll do that. Or are you like, I really want to do this. I really want to do that. Or were you just enjoying every day as it came along?
Yeah, I was really enjoying every day as it came along. I had ideas of where my strengths were. I really love tennis too, by the way. Tennis is one of my favorite sports, and I wish I could say I played at a professional level, but I didn't. But I played really well, and then coached. I promise I'll answer your question. I know I go off on tangents, but I coached as well. So Rogers Cup was, Rogers Sportsnet. So I, got to dabble in a little bit of tennis, which I've always wanted to cover. That was really cool, and was happy to see that come up my way. Did some highlights, the 11 o'clock highlights, the overnight highlights. It was really just about, at the time, to be honest with you, I really needed a lot more reps on TV. Like I maybe was on TV for 3 years before we got acquired, quote unquote, and none of it was ever live. The Score, did I do any live stuff at the Score? Barely. If they were like 15-second updates, in between whatever we carried, wrestling and UFC. So we would do little updates. But did I ever even do a 30-minute hour show? I didn't. And so the live reps were really important in whatever I was doing. Of course, I had an idea about what I wanted to do, and that is like pivot a little bit more into hockey, and that came around. But to answer your question, I was just kind of going with whatever and using that as prep to just better myself. Especially, I know hockey really well. I know tennis really well. I've gotten to know baseball, basketball, football over the years. But especially when you don't know a sport, that's what really tests you and makes you better. Learning about it, properly writing, reading highlights, reading the game. It really exercises those muscles. So I'm glad I got to do that.
I'm not sure people at home would understand. You could do a million taped segments or one live segment, and it's completely different, right? Like your
Yes.
mind is going 10 million miles an hour in a live segment, right?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And with live, as you guys know, which we could also talk about, so many like something can just change and you have to pivot on the fly while maintaining composure, while a producer or a director, usually a producer obviously is in your ear, telling you to pivot or telling you to stretch when you're just finishing your thought and they're like stretch for 2 more minutes. You're like, I gotta so and you gotta maintain
I
your
got
composure.
nothing.
I got nothing. And it's so fun, but you're absolutely right. Like your adrenaline, everything is so different. Even though you try to put in your best effort when you're pre-recording, there's that safety net that's the cushiest safety net ever, and it doesn't seem to matter as much.
You talk about the difference between live and taped. The other difference I want to talk to you about, Sophia, is the difference between doing sports TV in Canada versus sports TV in America.
Ooh,
I know that when I came down here in 2018, my first stint was with the San Jose Sharks with NBC Sports California, and I felt like it was a different language. Like I felt like even like at the regional level that I was at with NBC Sports California, I felt like that had been bigger than any network level that I had ever been at TSN or Sportsnet. It just seems to be a lot bigger, a lot more important, and but more importantly, different. Did you find that?
you know what? I'm gonna answer this in two parts. The short answer is no, because but then through watching other people and being around other people being in the States now for 7 years, the answer is yes. But you have to remember, I came from, for the most part, the very end, Hockey Night in Canada, which was national, and the budget was huge. And then I went to CBC, which is the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, which was national, and I did their national news. I even actually did hard news for a while when they needed a fill-in. Someone called in sick, I would just pivot from sports and like I'd be talking about plane crashes. It was crazy because I'm not prepped in that. But I did my best. But that the budget's crazy, the resources are crazy, hair, makeup, all that. And then I go over to Nesson, and I love Nesson so much, and it's an amazing regional channel, but it's just the scale is so different, right? So I felt that I came from something super big with a million hands and cooks in the kitchen to something smaller, but I'm just like choosing my words carefully because I like love Nesson so much and the opportunity that they've given me, but it just from national to regional is a bit different. But I think if you're going national Canada and then national US, or football, also NHL in the US is probably one of the lesser popular sports compared to basketball and football and baseball. But in Canada, of course, hockey's huge. So again, I came from this like big in Canada to smaller smaller, I guess, station in sports.
Mhm.
So in that case, I didn't feel it that way. But in just being around people I know in the industry and seeing the budget, the resources for how TV is done in America, it is night and day. It's night and day.
Yeah, I just found for me that if my stints in San Jose and Carolina led me to be able to take the job at TNT, the national job.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like I don't know. Maybe it's different on the production side. I'm not really sure, but like I was very, it almost felt like I was going back to school again when I moved down here, and very, very lucky and very blessed for all the opportunities I've had, because each stop that I've had, I've learned more, connected more, relationships more, and that's allowed me to move to the next level. So I just wondered if you found it the same way, but all good.
Well, I just want to add one thing. What I did find different, very different, is I was working for a station that covered the sports. Now I'm working for a station that exclusively is Bruins and Red Sox, of course. But I'm on the Bruins umbrella. So, and that's really different. Like the access I have, the relationships I get to have is, it does feel 10 times more intense than anything I've ever gotten to cover before in terms of closeness with the team. That's all I have to worry about. And I love that. And what that experience gives me, I guess, amps up the intensity in a different kind of way, because I'm thinking of my CBC hits were 2.5 minutes long, 3 minutes long, and then you do like 30 seconds on whatever the heck is going on. Whereas here I have an hour show on one topic, and in that way it's more intense. And I really do like it that way.
I find that when you're immersed with a team like that, you can be, for lack of a better term, it's so simplistic, a better broadcaster, because you've got so much information to parse and then to send out, where when you're just covering from the side, you just get whatever gets thrown to you, right?
Oh, yes. And that part is, I would say, the most frustrating part. I remember when I was in Canada before I started working in this, and I preferred radio so much more. I didn't really get to do a lot of radio, but it's just, you have 7 minutes to, or whatever the segment is, 7, 8 minutes to flush out a thought, to debate, to look at it from 5 different angles. And usually in TV, it's it's a layup. You set something up. Maybe you have a co-host that says a comment, and then you move on to the next element, and then you have sound to throw to and whatever. And that's nice because I get the fan likes everything being covered, but as the broadcaster, and I almost said artist, I was going to use quotes, but it is a creative expression, right? It's creative work. So as the person, the creative, it's you're really boxed in with TV sometimes. And when I have an hour to talk Bruins as opposed to 30 seconds, you're right, I can really get deeper in conversations, have a debate, have these back and forths, and it's a lot more enjoyable to do.
How long did it take you to navigate the national angle of your creativity versus now you're on the inside from a regional standpoint? Because being with a team, you have access to a lot more information, you see a lot more stuff that everybody sees, but you also are a team broadcaster. So some stuff's got to stay behind the curtain, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of the deal and the respect that I think all regional networks have when they cover a team exclusively. You might accidentally get a peek at something, or you might, know something. But before a team is ready to talk about it, that's it's your job. And I know there are a lot of insiders too, and I'm not going to name names, but on hockey night, there are a ton of insiders, and I know that they knew things before, that they couldn't talk about, because a lot of people think, well, like, it's your job. We've seen that happen before, and then that person loses the respect of its peers in the industry. So if someone's a writer and a breaking news person, they might get 5 tidbits and only share 3 of them, because the two, that preserves the relationship in the future with whoever you're working with. So it wasn't, to answer your question, it wasn't hard to find the balance. The Bruins give us access to so much, and they let us run with everything. It's almost like you use your own discretion, out of respect for a player too. Maybe something happened and they're not ready to talk about it, or you see them running off the ice, and you want to make sure that the team is, everything's good to go before you talk about it. And that's a respect thing. And I think that happens in any career, in any industry. You're working with your company, and there are certain things that and the other, and you have to wait to talk about. So it wasn't weird. It wasn't like 50% is off limits. It's like we could pretty much talk about and share anything we see and feel. You just have to use your own intuition, discretion, make sure, hey, is this okay if we bring this up, if we talk about this? I loved the access, and I mostly loved, really, the joy I get from this job is being around other people. Like I used to joke when I was a kid, if I could broadcast to like a closet full of teddy bears, I don't care. Like I don't care who's watching. And I love the fans, but I mean, I'm not doing it so that people are watching me. I'm doing it because I like storytelling, and I love being around people. And so being around a team and the training staff and PR, it's such a joy every day to me. And I'm sure you guys feel that way in the truck too, with all the people you have to work with. It's those like little interactions, and it's the interactions with the players that you get to know more. Their kids come to the rink, their wives come to the rink, you get to meet them. That's the best part of the job for me.
So you're experienced enough in the business to be able to look back. And if I say to you, what characteristics do you think you can recognize in yourself now that have been the most beneficial to you getting to where you are? And I'm not going to name any characteristics because I don't want to take your answer. But what do you think that would be for you?
I would say being a people person and just really good with people. It's a compliment I've gotten. I have no social anxiety, and like I know I'm taking it to another conversation here, but I joke with my friends who go to parties or have to do meetings. Like I never ever once in my life have, oh, if someone's like, hey, do you want to come to this party and I don't know anyone and there's 100 people, I'm like, sure. Or like, I'm a good guest, I'm a good +1 at weddings, I'm like, yes. And then I'll work the room, and hopefully not in like a cocky way. I'm not trying to be the class clown, I'm not trying to take the attention, but I just love people so much. I've gotten this I don't know if it's a compliment, but this comment many times of, all of a sudden I'm talking to someone at a coffee shop, like the barista, and he or she's like, wait, how did you get all this information out of me? Like, I don't tell anyone this, but like 5 minutes in, they're like, and then my mom did this. And I just somehow am able to do that. And I say this because I am getting to know myself better, very genuinely. I just really am curious. Like, I just love people's stories. And when I ask, how are you? It's not actually like, hey, how are you? I'm actually asking, how are you? Let's talk about it. And so I would say for me, it's just loving learning about people. And that's helped my connections, I guess, that I've heard, over the years, players say, I'm really comfortable talking to her, that I trust her too. Like I don't think I've ever asked a question, and maybe it's a knock on me as a journalist, but I don't think I've ever asked a question where I'm sneakily asking something but trying to get something else. You know what I mean? I'm very forward, I'm very direct, and I think that's just been the biggest asset. And you guys know too, I love it is playing on a team. You're not alone. You're the only one, maybe if I'm doing a hit, that's all the audience sees, it's me. But it's a camera person, it's audio, it's a director and a producer, it's PR that helps me get the interview. It's a team. So being a good team player and cooperating is very important too.
You said that might be a knock on you as a journalist. Why do you say that?
Well, I wonder, I was on another pod recently, and I didn't name any names, but I was talking about my experience in the Toronto Maple Leafs dressing room as a reporter. And it wasn't pleasant, to be honest with you. And mostly I would say, and I have so many friends who are media in Toronto, and they're my friends. So I'm not painting everyone with the same brush, but I've been in scrums in many different rooms, and I covered the Jays for a while. Like I said, I've covered other sports. I find some reporters are sneaky and they're manipulative a bit. And the way they ask questions maybe gets the headline or that good article, but I'm like, wow, that was really unfair the way you did that. And I will never do that for the sake of my own gain. I will never do that. And that's why I'm like, maybe I'm not going to be the best journalist. If I'm covering a political scandal, that's very different to me. If it's like, our tax dollars aren't being spent properly, the people deserve to know. And I'm not saying it's just a sport, but this is also, people forget that players are people. I know they get paid a lot of money, but they have the same emotions, they have the same anxieties, they have the same problems at home that someone might have. A child might be sick, a parent might be not doing well. And I just can't stand sometimes the attitude of certain reporters who just think like, you owe us this, and I'll find a way to get this out of you. So that's when I say, yeah, maybe not getting the story that everyone wants to read because it's scandalous. Maybe that's the knock, but I would rather not. I'd rather just be a fair person that listens and still tells an important story. It's not like I hide things at Nesson. The Bruins should be accountable for Charlie Jacobs and Don Sweeney and Cam Neely and Marco Sturm now. They've always said that. So it's not like we're softballing them, but it's about respect for the human side too. So I try to make that top priority as well.
And that creates a trust with
Yeah.
with the players, and you can't ask for more than that, because the second that a player or a coach or management staff does not trust you anymore, I mean, it's basically almost career suicide, right, for your position.
No, totally. And I respect that, I'm in a scrum, and if, let's say, there's 7 people in that scrum, if I know someone's going to go there, I might let them go there. And if I'm the only one, I do one-on-ones, I'll go there. But I'm not trying to double, triple down on something, all the time, right? I try to find like a different angle, a human angle too. That's one of my favorite things. It's like I love X's and O's, and that's what we're doing. There's room for that, but I also love the human angle, and I tend to find ask those questions the most.
Me?
Yeah.
So to me, it's sports, but really all we're doing is people stories. Am I right?
Mhm. Yeah, and of course, like the Bruins power play really improved this year from last year. That was a storyline we had all year. Penalty kill was crazy good at the beginning and then suffered near the end of the season. We are absolutely making that a feature in our show. We are talking about that. And maybe that's not the time for pregame if the power play is 0 for 18 or whatever to be talking about a family side of things or whatever family. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but the human side of things. We're talking about, why aren't they getting a shot off? Why are they coughing up the puck? Why are they, giving it away? Why are they creating shorthanded opportunities? That is just as important. But outside of that, like I call it the color. I like to color things, and like as a quick example, the Bruins had have a player named Murat Husnudinov who knew 5 words of English maybe when they got him at the trade deadline now a year ago, and he didn't really do scrums, and he was I come from Polish immigrants, so I have a lot of empathy for English as a second language, like a lot. I can't believe how many reporters will use big words with the Murat, and they'll be like, what are your I'm trying to think of a big word right now, but like, what are your blah, blah, blah for blah? And they're saying it super fast. And the player's like, what? Like, I try to, and I don't want to say dumb it down, but I'll try to be like, did you enjoy today? Like that, let's start there. See how you do. Was it fun? Whatever, even though it sounds dumb.
Yeah.
How was the goal? And anyway, long story short, I had a one-on-one with Murat, and I just said, hey, your English is better, like off to the side after the summer. And I was like, your English is doing pretty good. It's better. And he said, he was so touched. This is after a scrum. And he said, thank you. I take lesson 3 days a week. And I was like, oh, wait, what? You're taking English lessons? So then I started to go in. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. It's like being friends with, being kind to the person, understanding that they're human. The scrum was done. No one said thank you. No one noticed that he was trying really hard. And I was like, hey, I noticed you tried really hard. Your English is good. And he was like, oh, wow. And then he's like, I'm taking lessons. And then I got that out of him. And we talked a little bit about that. And he does it via Zoom now because in the season he can't do it in person. And he practices. And then that became a story for me. And that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Like, yes, he jumped from the fourth line to the first line. We got to talk about that for 20 minutes or whatever, 5 minutes. But give me a minute to say that he's also taking English lessons. You know what I mean?
That's awesome. I'm going to do a hard pivot here, Soph, because we've only got about 3 minutes left with you. We promised that you've got other stuff to get onto, but we would be remiss if we didn't mention the fact that as passionate you are about television and hockey, you are also equally as passionate about being a certified holistic health coach. And I follow you on your Fully Alive with Sophia Instagram account. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how you got into that? I mean, obviously it's part of healthy lifestyle living, which you do, but just what made you want to go fifth gear in that direction?
For sure. Thanks for asking about that. So my background, like, and I keep mentioning my parents, but it just has so much to do with how I grew up. They were very, very poor in Poland. They were both older, born right after the Second World War. So there was like no food, and then there was communism. So you grew everything. You bartered with your neighbors. You didn't waste anything. You reused things, and whatever. Like even the vegetables you'd boil, you'd save the water for a broth. Like they didn't waste anything, and that's how I grew up. And my mom and dad went to farms growing up and got food there instead of the grocery store. So then that was in my mind already, and we were a very, very healthy family compared to like microwave dinners. I packed all my lunches. I don't think they ever bought a school lunch for me. And it was just whatever. So there's that. And then when I did turn 18, 19, I was interning. I was not sleeping. I was paying for school and going to school. I started taking out Timmy's bagel for breakfast every day and Starbucks Frappuccinos. And I got pretty unwell, put on quite a bit of weight. And then I got pretty unwell. And I remember my mom was like, what are you doing? It's the food you're eating. But as a teenager, so to speak, you rebel against your parents. You're like, I'm going to figure this out on my own. I'm not going to listen to you. I'm going to do it my own way. And I tried for like a year and a half, and I'll make this quick. I tried for a year and a half to go to doctors and get better. I was really lethargic, really tired. Things weren't going well. And they couldn't help me. Most of them prescribed medication. They couldn't help me. And so finally I went to a naturopath and I did this. It took way longer. It took like 6 months. And not to get into the details, but I changed lifestyle, diet, all that, and never felt better and have never looked back. Like I've been in control of my health and weight and everything ever since. And I just felt I love doctors and nurses, and my family in Poland. I think of 3 doctors in my family, so I say this with all due respect. But I kind of turned away from Western medicine to see like, hey, maybe there is something to how we eat and sleep and stress management and all that, and not just medication. And I kind of just made that my passion, and I love it because I think there are so many people that our healthcare systems are overburdened too, that can use the extra support. So I wish I had more time to talk about this, but that's the story. It's like, it was already ingrained in me with how I was raised. And then when I got myself better by changing my lifestyle, especially diet, I was like, this isn't a joke. This isn't a suggestion. It's real. Like what we eat really matters. And there you go. And that's the short of it.
Well, so yeah, it was. It flew right by, but you know what? That is exactly what the doctor ordered for our listeners. We can't thank you enough for taking the time to join us today. It was awesome. We sure did leave a lot on the cutting room floor, but we'll definitely have you back for Sophia Part 2. Deal?
I would love that. I know when people ask me a question, I go all over the place, and you're probably like, wrap it up, but that's just my style. So yeah, we started a lot of conversations and almost didn't end them because I kept taking them other places, but I'd love to come back.
I love the all over the place. That was my favorite part about it, because you never know where unpredictability is a win, right?
I agree. I mean, I agree. It's not always good for the nervous system, but in a funny conversation like this, it's okay. It's okay.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Soph. We appreciate you.
Thank you, guys.